I want to go back to the year 1984. The one-party system of Mexico had been ruling since 1929. It gave Mexico stability, peace, growth, but there was in 1968 the bloody repression of students, then 12 years of a disastrous two administrations that drove the country on the verge of bankruptcy. I thought at that time, I was very young, that it was time to try democracy. And I wrote a piece for a democracy without adjectives. It was very simple what I wanted when I proposed free elections, division of powers, free press, and independent judiciary. That was a democracy without adjectives. The government at that time reacted fiercely against it, and so did the left at that time. In spite of that, there was one man, an old anarchist, who said, well, maybe Enrique is, after all, might be not wrong, and why don't we try his very modest utopia? A democracy in Mexico, what a great idea. A modest utopia. 1985, suddenly the winds of change came from the East, from the Soviet Union, from Eastern Europe, and they touched Latin America a few years later. Suddenly, Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, and then even Chile with Pinochet, democracy, the military went out from power, and we had democracy. And even in Nicaragua, they had elections, so only Mexico and Cuba, of course, was missing. It seemed then that democracy was, after all, not such a bad idea to try. Ernesto Zedillo was president in 1994, and after a few years, he took democracy seriously, and in the year 2000, in that wonderful, hopeful year of the new century and the new millennia, Mexico was doing something extraordinary, a peaceful and orderly transition to democracy. We had an independent National Electoral Institute. We had real elections, division of power, and we had complete freedom of press. But then some good things, all good things, come to an end. Populism had appeared not only in Mexico, but in Latin America and elsewhere. And I took very seriously the appearance of populism. And I wrote a decalogue of populism in the year 2005, noticing that there was something very deep and dangerous about that new kind of autocracy, a popular autocracy, new and old, because of course there were echoes in the Roman history and in the Greek history, demagogues. Yes, but demagogues in the age of mass communication. And here we had Hugo Chavez in Venezuela and Andrés Manuel López Obrador in Mexico. I wrote a piece 20 years ago, a long essay about López Obrador, saying that his brand of populism was very special. He was a kind of redemptionist populist, a populist with a touch of religiosity. I called him, and it was not an insult, the tropical messiah. And that essay had some impact. Immediately I went to Venezuela, and I spent a year studying Venezuela with Hugo Chavez, and I wrote a book. I called it El Poder y el Delirio, Power and Delirium. Well, it turned out that the ideas that I had pointed out in that decalogue of populism and in that book turned out to be, sadly, a kind of prophecy for Mexico. Because after two unsuccessful attempts, in the year 2018, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, popularly known as AMLO, became president of Mexico. And there's a sad thing about being a kind of Cassandra, because people think that Cassandra wishes what she prophesied, or a prophet wishes what one prophesied. I did not wish to see the drug trails being allied with the government. I did not wish the destruction of every institution in Mexico, not institutions very early, young institutions, but institutions of the republic, division of power, health, culture, education. Almost every institution in this country that has been also a serious country of devoted to building institutions. That was what Mexico was for many years, decades, and of course, the harassment of freedom. Andrés Manuel López Obrador attacked me personally 474 times, attacks in his morning conference. From 2024 until now, the process and the regime keeps on destroying institutions. The last was the judicial system. It destroyed it completely. And then the electorate system they are about to destroy. And I end up with a sad note. Now I am writing my book, and my book is called indeed A Modest Utopia.